Good morning and assalamu alaikum. You are tuned into Inspire FM 105.1 FM. It's Friday, 17th of May, and the time has now just gone 10 o'clock. Welcome to Mother's Planet, a show where there is always something to talk about in a productive and beneficial way. I'm your host, Neelum, and joining me on the show today is my guest, Umara Qureshi, who is a deputy head teacher. And now I will formally get her to introduce herself a little later in the show. But first, assalamu alaikum and good morning. Welcome to the show.
Walaikum Salam, how are you today?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. You beat me to it. I was just going to ask you, how are you?
I am good. I'm good as well. It's a lovely Friday today.
Yes, absolutely. The sun is out. Yay. So, Amira, how has the week been for you?
It's been really good. Obviously, the year 11s have had several exams this week, and it's been their first week where they've had potentially two on a day or two on 2 days. And it was nice actually that they got to start last week, which doesn't always happen. So potentially having two exams 1 week before and then having them this week, prepare them and ease them into it a little bit. So in that sense, it's been quite good. I think AQA exam board's been really nice so far. I don't know how chemistry is going this morning, but so far that's been going well. So let's hope that continues. And then quite a few exams are done. So English by end of next week will be 3 out of 4 exams done, which is a rarity. Usually it's only 2 before the May half term.
Wow. Wow. So they are knocking the exams out very quickly.
Yes.
Probably quite good because I guess once the students start getting into the mojo of revising and studying, it keeps the momentum. If they have breaks in between, it's always quite hard to remotivate yourself. It's been quite a tough week, I think, with the students having those exams. And as we mentioned, the weather is always playing tricks on us. It's been quite strange because we've had sunshine on and off this week. It's not come to stay. So I'm hoping that this weekend's quite nice so that we can really enjoy the sun again. I quite like the sunshine. Would you say, Amira, you're a summer person?
Absolutely. When the sun's out, we're all happy, aren't we? We even got a little bit of rain this week out of the blue, which, at the start of an exam. But I think, the young people, they're just focused on the exams right now.
Yeah, they're not letting the weather destroy that in any way. I know rain. I don't like rain. It was a bit of a horrible one because it was humid. So it's not like we could have wore our winter jackets or been covered up. It was that sticky rain, so it wasn't nice. Now, listeners, we are live on air, reaching out to listeners in Luton and surrounding areas through the airwaves at Inspire FM 105.1 FM. You can also connect through TuneIn via the Inspire FM new and improved website. And we are also streaming as an audio via the Inspire FM Facebook page, where you must leave a thumbs up and can also share any comments and questions around today's topic. As always, I am taking in WhatsApp and text messages via the studio number on 07779 481 822. So you can send in your messages for either myself or my guest on today's topic. And today's topic is talking about exam tips and revision and understanding actually the importance of being organized. Now, before I delve into my questions and put Amira on the hot seat, can I please get you to introduce yourself to the listeners?
So my name is Umara Qureshi. I am a science teacher initially, but I work at Chiltern Academy currently, and I'm the senior deputy head teacher there. And I've also got my own son currently in year 11 doing his exams too. So it's a double whammy this year for me.
Wow, I was just going to ask because I recall your son being at the school, but I wasn't quite sure. So he's doing his, and how's he finding them?
I think initially it took some time for him to warm up, but now that he's done the first few exams and they've actually gone seemingly, I think he now knows how to revise, which means I don't have to do as much pushing and shoving as I was at the start. But he now knows once he's done the exam, if I revise a little bit more, it'll help next time, and he's in the flow of things, which is really great.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing you say that because I think people underestimate how much mothers and parents have input in their children's academics. My husband, at his company that he's working with, one of the colleagues has actually given in her notice and said that she's going to take some time out because she's got twin girls that are doing GCSE. and they need her support. So she's just going to stop working for a little while just to see them through this period. So I was, and I thought, wow, that's huge devotion there to give up her job to, but you know, she said they're twin girls and they both are very different in how they are reacting to the exams. So she's taken that time out to support them through it. So yeah, I think we underestimate how much parents actually have an input in this. Now, Umara, I wanted to start the questions off with the importance of succeeding in GCSEs, because I think a lot of people really underestimate how important these are. You know, I think when it gets to A levels, they're like, yep, that's what's going to dictate your future and everything. But this is the foundation. So
Absolutely. And there's also an expectation that English and maths need to be a good pass, which now is considered to be a grade 5. A grade 4 is still a pass, and it's called a standard pass as per the DFE. And if you are looking at a lot of the college providers, without that grade 5, a lot of the courses become inaccessible. So where pupils have an average of a grade 4, they are offered specific courses and not necessarily the full suite of A levels. So it does serve as a stepping stone into A levels, but also the English and Maths GCSE in particular, even as an adult, if you go for a job interview or if you're applying for a course, those are the 2 certificates you will always have to show. And in terms of the other subjects that a student picks, the rich learning and the grades, they stay with you forever. So it is a really, really important step. And these are grades that you will use forever. And even A levels are tough and they're a stepping stone to university, but the GCSE grade certificates you will take wherever you go. And the other thing is, if the English and maths outcomes are not at a 4 or sometimes a 5, colleges will re-enter pupils. So passing it the first time round is a bonus and actually better for the pupils, because having to do your key stage 5 learning and redoing your English and maths and sometimes science, it just adds the extra pressure. So therefore getting it right first time is obviously the best for pupils. And some children do need the retake and they don't always make it first time round. But again, you know, back to what you were saying, I think parents are absolutely critical in terms of exams, because that support that parents give, it just makes such a big difference. You know, there's little things like not asking them to do all of the chores that they would usually do so they can spend that time on revision, and even helping them out a little bit by doing their chores, like maybe, you know, emptying their bedroom bin or putting some snacks in their room. And these little things make a very, very big difference to the young people, and it just means that they can focus on the revision and not stress too much about their own organization. So having extra pens and stationery in the house, having extra paper in the house, all of these things just alleviates a lot of that pressure of the young people, and they can focus solely on their revision, because they've been told for 5 years that these GCSEs are important. And they've also seen children that are a year above them go through the exams, walk out of the exams. They've seen them on results day. They've heard about their friends, cousins, neighbours, and how important the GCSEs are for them. So they do understand the importance and they know how pivotal it is in their life. So the more support we give them, the better at this stage.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think you really summed it up quite well there, Umara, where you said that, you know, little things about keeping their room, you know, in a clean environment so that they can study, and keeping the snacks going. I mentioned this last week in my show about the things that they can eat through this period, to just make sure that we as parents are filling their minds with good nourishing foods, rather than, you know, letting them go for the quick foods, the snacks and the junks. A while ago, I attended a careers event at a school where I was talking to girls that were at year 10, so some of them were 15 heading towards 16, and speaking to them, not a lot of them had a sense of direction as to where they wanted to go, what they wanted to do. Now these were year 10, and then we had a round of year 11 students come to us as well, and I walked away quite concerned, because I thought, they don't know where they want to go, and, you know, put my mind at ease. Is it important that at the age of, you know, when they finish their GCSE, they actually have some form of idea of where they want to go? It's
very common for them not to know at that stage. So there's you won't find many pupils that know exactly what they want to do or what they want to become until usually towards the end of A levels, when they're starting to think about that university course. I mean, I've known pupils who come in year 7 and they know exactly what they're going to be. I'm going to be a pilot, or I'm going to be a surgeon. And, having taught for so long, they do actually become what
Wow.
they've said. And it's because they've just had their heart on it, and they've had the mindset to do that. But most children don't know. And I think the key thing that they need to be thinking about really at this stage is, what courses do you want to do at A level, and work backwards. What degree would you do? Because they don't always know what they want to become. And sometimes it's about them finding what they enjoy. And that's the conversation. That's where the conversation needs to be steered towards. I mean, I had a friend at school who did a law degree and then went back to university and did a midwifery degree, and is now happily a midwife. So sometimes people don't know until adulthood, and that's fine, because I think sometimes not knowing the extent of some of the higher education courses, not knowing what they actually entail, it makes it a little bit difficult for the young people. So subjects like economics and accounting and a few other subjects like that, where we don't cover them specifically in school, sometimes they don't always know the extent of those courses. So some people know what they want to become because it's a family member or they have that influence, but others, I think they need to focus on what courses they would enjoy, what subjects they would enjoy, and then from that they will find a career that they enjoy, because that enjoyment is very, very important. Because trying to put a round peg in a square hole never works. So therefore I think I wouldn't find it concerning that they don't know, because it takes time. But as long as they know what they enjoy and what they would like to study further, that is important. Sometimes pupils have picked their college options, got the GCSE results, turned up on GCSE results day and just swapped them completely. I know pupils from last year who went to college to do computer science, and then within the first 2 weeks decided, actually, no, I'm going to do English literature, like absolute opposite subjects. But it takes time, I think, for them to find their way and for opportunities to arise. And some know. For me, more pupils don't know and less of them do know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's very true about a lot of the colleges and sixth forms do have 2 week leeway at the beginning where you can have a feel and a taste of this subject, because as you say, at GCSE level you don't study most of these subjects like accountancy and economics and subjects that are offered at A level. So they might delve into them and actually not like it when they're in it, so they have the opportunity to switch. And and careers can be changed at later stage. I think the important thing is what you said there, is about doing a subject that you really enjoy and then allowing yourself the option of doing those A-level subjects that would open up more paths for your career. So I think I've always really pushed everyone. I said, look, if you can and if you're good at it, do maths A level, because having maths as an A level will open up so many opportunities. If you don't decide to do this career, but you've got a maths A level, you can actually do something else with it. So I always say, think about the options that you're going for and try and see that it's going to be a bit more broad. My niece at the moment has picked very narrow A levels, and she's sitting her A levels this year. And halfway through now, she was dead set on doing law, but now has decided that actually she's not quite sure she likes law, but the subjects that she's picked has really limited her to either go into a professional career like law or something related to that. And so she's in regret. So she says, I wish I had that advice and guidance that, I picked subjects that were a bit more broader. So I guess it's trying to understand those subjects and looking into those subjects that's quite important as well. Listeners, if you have just tuned in, where have you been? I have the lovely Umara with me this morning, and we are going to be talking about exams and exam tips. I just wanted to open up the show with a bit of career advice there, because I think when the children sit GCSEs, I've got my son in year 10 and I'm already giving him a lot of pressure. But when they come into year 11, it's like, you have to have a career set. So especially me as a parent, I'm always thinking, no, you need to know where you're going. But actually, I think Amira touched on that very nicely there about letting them do subjects that they enjoy, and, the careers will unfold if they don't have a sense of direction right now. those careers will come to them at some point in their life. So don't panic like I do. Now, I guess, the final thing, just to end of the topic around careers, is there anything that we as parents can do to get support to help them make correct career choices? Because I think when I went to this particular school and I was speaking to some of the students, a lot of them felt like their parents didn't know where to go or where to get help from or where to get guidance from. So they weren't really pushing their children into a particular direction because they didn't know themselves. So is there anything that is out there that you think that parents could access that could help support them?
There's a lot of support in schools, really, because there's a careers advisor attached to every educational establishment, so even at the colleges. So if you do go to the open days at colleges, and some universities do open days and taster sessions for younger students that parents can obviously attend. And I know that a lot of universities did them virtually as well. So I think as a parent, the key thing is to think about the logistics of university is what I would suggest. So where would your child go? How far would they go? And, what is that going to look like? And then if you go onto the university websites, they are very, very clear about what they want as entry requirements. And a university course is even more streamlined than the A levels. So they are very, very niche. And then you've got courses that have a sandwich year where you do that work experience, or there's loads of courses now where you can go abroad and that can be part of the package. So I think as a parent, looking at the universities that you think your child could go to, or that you operationally can manage, and then looking at the courses that are available, and if they've got any open days, going to those, taking them, and having a look at the entry requirements and the types of courses, I think that's a really good place to start. Because sometimes we think about careers probably too quickly, but I think if your child is going to university, then it's important to look at which universities and then what they offer. So if your child wanted to go to King's College, or your aspiration, I want to send them to King's College, a lot of the entry requirements are A's and A stars, but they don't specify which subject. So again, that's where it comes down to them picking the subjects they enjoy. If your child wants to, if you think and that your child wants to be a police officer or a nurse or a very niche job role like that, then that's where getting in touch with the actual establishment that's near you. So getting in touch with the careers advisory place for the police. The police do a lot of outreach work, as an example, when it comes to careers, and even hospitals. They have a lot of outreach work, and it's because they're always trying to recruit into the industry, and even local businesses. So if it's engineering based, there's lots of local businesses that run apprenticeships. So I think having a look at what would logistically work for your child, apprenticeship or university, and then kind of looking at, because universities have broad offers, but I think once you go through that menu of A to Z, you can narrow it down a little bit and then have it go to the open day and work it out. So I think that would be the best advice. But again, every school and college has an advisor.
Yeah.
So I think every year 11 pupil from year 10 or year 11, they will always have that meeting. So it's about talking to your child about, have you had that meeting? What did you discuss? And where did that go? And even preparing your child, if they're still in year 9, talk to them about how when you do have that advisory meeting at school, what are some of the things that you would like to explore, and prepare them for that discussion so that they go in well prepared to ask the right questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And yes, I hope listeners took note of that, because there was some sound advice there. So I guess now really to delve into our topic of discussion is to try and understand the difference between studying and revising, or if there is any actually.
There is, because studying is learning it for the first time and in depth, and revising is recalling that information that's already learnt. One of the big trends that is happening right now amongst young people, and probably brought on by social media, is the idea of predicted papers and trusting professionals to predict what's going to come up. And that's a really, really dangerous place to be. So there's a lot of people on social media who are putting up posts saying, I predicted this paper and I'm predicting the next one. And then what's happening is that the students are thinking, okay, I don't need to revise 100%. I just need to revise 50% based on those predictions. And I mean, a lot of it comes up on my own TikTok feed, I think because of my son. And there was loads on TikTok about kingship as the theme for Macbeth. And the exam question that come up was about Lady Macbeth. It's as far removed from kingship as possible. And I think there's a danger right now, and I think that's why I'd like to share this with parents, of making sure that your child is revising all of the concepts, and where they're weak or if they don't know anything, using the resources out there to study and read and teach themselves concepts, and not relying on social media posts that are claiming to be able to predict, because that's a very dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the very good advice there as well, because you need to study all your topics. You don't know what's going to come up, and no one can predict that and foresee that as well. When would you advise is the best or optimum time for these students studying GCSEs to start their revision? Because, lots of people, as you said, there's a difference between studying and revision. Now, studying is where you are actually still understanding that topic and getting more knowledge in that topic or that area. And revising is recalling. So when would you say is the optimum time or the best time for students that are going to sit GCSEs to be recalling, revising for these subjects?
So what usually happens is students are still being taught concepts right up to the last mocks. So once those mocks are done, that second set of mocks in year 11, after that, everything should be restudy or revise. So from as soon as those mocks end and, pupils can reflect on how well it's gone themselves, that's when the revision needs to begin. And it doesn't need to be as regular as it would be 3-4 weeks before the exam season, but it does need to be a drip feed approach, because you can't learn 4 or 5 hours worth of content the night before the actual exam, and you can't do that for 2 exams if you've got 2 exams the following day. But in terms of study, I feel like that should start in year 10. So it's very important to keep on top of those concepts in year 10. My year 11s this year, I was very strict with them, and I said to them, I'm picking one revision technique because I teach science. I know that it's a suitable technique. And I said, you're going to make mind maps on these topics. And from January until Easter, I made them create, and they take a few hours, 1 or 2 every weekend. And only 2 weeks ago, one of the girls said to me, Miss, I'm so glad you forced us to make those, because now they're revising and not restudying. So that time, you have to give yourself more time. The bigger the exam, the more content there is, the more time they need to just redo. Because the thing is, when you learn something, you never learn it fully the first time. It's all about revisiting, and it's the psychology of it. Every time you fire the electrical impulse along a nerve, the stronger it gets, and you're building those neural pathways. So the repetition is very, very important for revision. So therefore, it's about doing it in depth and taking your time at the start, and then revisiting. And what happens is there's less and less to revisit, because a lot of it becomes embedded, and that's the best way to prepare for exams. But studying should start in year 10. Actual GCSE revision should start after the second mocks. But after this first set of mocks, is really important to start that content, revising that content drip feed until the second mocks, and then from then on, all of it up to the exams.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the advice there. And I think it's really important, because sometimes you in year 10 study topics and then they're done very early on in the year, and then you've grasped new concepts, new topics, and you've not really gone back and looked at what you studied at the beginning. And particularly with maths, my favorite subject at the moment. But whenever you do a concept or find a method of doing a calculation or an answer, you do find that you actually get better at finding a different way, because there's several ways of doing certain calculations, and and it's what works for you. And so what you might have thought worked for you in the early stages of year 10, that, yep, I solidly understand doing it this way, you might find towards the beginning of year 11, actually, I've just found another way, and this method is so much better. And so it's really important that you go back and you test those methods. Now, listeners, I am taking in WhatsApp messages and text messages on the studio number 07779 481 822. Apologies to the listener that has messaged through. I will get to your message, inshallah, after the break. Believe it or not, we are actually heading towards a short commercial break now. We have come to the first half hour of the show. And so after the break, listeners, Mary will be giving more tips and strategies as to how children can revise. We touched on a little bit of mind mapping, so you can find out a little bit more about what this is and how your children can, if they don't know about this, how they can try and incorporate this in their studies. So you listen out for those. And also any messages or WhatsApp messages or text messages you have, you can send those through on 07779 481 822. But for now, go refill your hot drink, cold drink, whatever it is that you're having with us this morning, and join us after a short commercial break. Assalamu alaikum.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Hi, my name is Fatima. I'm from Project Ribcage. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. It's all under Project Ribcage. We also have a website, projectribcage.com. Our message for today is, if not you, then who? Please listen to Inspire FM at 105.1.
Attention all electricians, builders and DIY enthusiasts. Capital Electrical Wholesalers are now open in Luton. It's a fully stocked branch with experienced staff on hand to help with all your electrical needs. With branches also in Greenford, Tottenham, Richmond and Ashton. Capital Electrical Wholesalers only stock the biggest names, including JCC, Saxby, Knightsbridge, Hamilton, MK, Wilex, Hager, Aco Smoke Alarms and many more. That's Capital Electrical at Unit M, Kingsway Industrial Estate. Call 01582 801122.
वेस्टबोर्न फार्मेसी हफ्ते के 7 दिन सुबह 9 बजे से लेकर रात 9 बजे तक खुली रहती है। हमारी सर्विसेज में शामिल हैं ट्रैवल वैक्सीनेशंस, स्टॉप स्मोकिंग, डायबिटीज चेक, बच्चों की ग़िज़ा और बहुत कुछ। लुटन और डंस्टेबल में फ्री प्रिस्क्रिप्शन, पिकअप और डिलीवरी सर्विसेज भी की जाती है। इसके अलावा आप मेडिसिन के इस्तेमाल के लिए फ्री मशवरा भी ले सकते हैं। वेस्टबोर्न फार्मेसी 198 B Dunstable Road, Luton, corner of Westbourne Road. Telephone 01582 419 432.
Are you ready to embark on a journey of purpose and impact? The East of England Ambulance Service is recruiting now. Are you seeking training in a new career or looking for a challenge in development? Start your career for life with East. Apply now for roles in frontline emergency operations, control rooms, support services and non-emergency transport. Visit www.eastamb.nhs.uk and click Join the Team. Make a real difference. Join the East of England Ambulance Service and start your career for life.
55 million face hunger in West and Central Africa, including malnourished children. Can you make a lasting difference in children's lives? Together with the plight of the children of Gaza, let's become a beacon of hope in their time of sheer need. Call the donation hotline now on 0114 365 4454 or visit familiesrelief.org.uk and let's save lives together.
With UK Export Finance, I'm fulfilling more export orders from around the world with working capital support.
Export insurance means I'll get paid when exporting to challenging markets.
At UK Export Finance, we believe no viable UK export should fail for lack of finance or insurance. Between 2022 and 2023, we provided £6.5 billion of government-backed trade finance to support UK exports. Learn how we could help you win export contracts, fulfill orders, and get paid. Search UK Export Finance today.
Juggling too much? Trying to keep it all together without losing your mind? You deserve some me time. Join me, Neelum, on Mother's Planet every Friday at 10 o'clock on air at 105.1 FM or via our Inspire FM Facebook page. I'll be sharing tips and discussions with my guests on topics from kids, what to cook, health, well-being, and lots more for all you special mums. That's Mother's Planet every Friday from 10 a.m. only at Inspire FM 105.1 FM.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 10:30.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Mother's Planet. It's Friday, 17th of May, and the time has now just gone 10:30. I'm your host, Neelum, and joining me this morning is my guest, Umara, a deputy head teacher who has very kindly taken the time out to share some great tips and advice for exam preparation. So, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So thank you. So I think we spent most of the morning talking about careers and opportunities of how parents can support their children. We have had a text message come through from a listener. Assalamu alaikum, Neelum. Another great show. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. My advice to help our children decide what they want to do is to try and help find them lots of different work experiences, especially where they have an interest in. So I've taken my children to my workplace and arranged many other experiences for them. So hopefully that helps, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for that message and advice there. Absolutely, work experience is sound. And, you know, whenever they can, try to get them to read. It also gives them the exposure to, oh, actually, while I thought I'm going to become an accountant and sitting down and doing the numbers, they might actually find that it's so mind-boggling that they're not enjoying it at all. So it's a bit of a reality check. So thank you so much for that message that came through there. So Amira, I wanted to actually ask, because you touched on it a little bit just before the break about mind mapping. So can we talk about some of the study techniques and strategies that you can recommend for preparing for exams?
I think the really important part of revision is using exam board specifications. So for every single GCSE that's out there, if you and you can Google it, everybody can see it. So if you type in AQA English Literature specification, you can see the specification on the internet. And that's what the teachers use to plan their lessons. That's what the exam board uses to make their mark schemes. So I just feel that all young people should be able to see what they're being examined on through the specification. Some are more useful than others. So if you look at a science or computer science or certain subjects, it outlines in detail, line by line, exactly what pupils need to know. Others are more based on the mark scheme, may have a grid method, which looks at the skills. And I think that's a really useful resource for revising. So when I was talking about mind mapping, what I asked the pupils to do was to go on to the specification, which outlines all of the information with diagrams, with examples, and ask them to use that information to create a mind map, which is an old money brainstorm, what we used to do when we were younger, brainstorms. So they just put all of the information down, and it helps them to almost summarize the information so that it fits on a page, and then that way they can look at it shorthand instead of reading the pages of specification again. Another really common method is if you watch a video, and I mean BBC Bite Size, and I think I said this to you last year as well, BBC Bite Size is underrated. It is very accurate when it comes to exam boards and GCSEs, and very clear and concise information. Their diagrams are excellent. They've got information for every exam board for almost every course. So that's another one that, you know, students can use to help with their mind maps. But YouTube videos are also excellent. There are several good YouTube videos out there. I think the important thing is to make sure that the YouTube videos being watched are for the correct course. So if it's EdXL Geography A, because there's EdXL Geography B as well, it's about making sure it's the correct one. So all of the pupils should know what exam board they're doing. It's on their revision guides, it's on their textbooks that school provides them. And if you watch those YouTube videos, there's a new method called Cornell Notes. And it's a really good method for summarizing information from a video. So it involves sectioning the page up and just writing small notes as you're watching the video. And then after you watch the video, you take each small note and write a description next to it. And then the next day you come back and you read the notes and you summarize it into fewer lines. And it's a really good technique that is being used in universities, especially in America, that we're starting to use in schools. So Cornell Notes is a very good technique. Some children don't like a mind map because it's too busy and they use flashcards. Flashcards are very good because you can test your child or they can test their friends. So it's a really good way of making the information bite-sized. You can also buy flashcards.
Yeah.
So CGP have got lots of flashcards for almost everything, and children like to get those flashcards and look at the information and put them into pile of, I definitely know this, I don't know this, I need to revise this again, and that way they just get through the information. So that's a very popular revision strategy that I've seen the Year 11s use this year. And there's several other ways, but I think the one to avoid mainly is copying out definitions or copying out, because copying verbatim from anywhere, it doesn't really involve enough of the concentration. And so therefore it doesn't really help with the learning. And I think a lot of children feel like they've done lots of revision because they've copied out lots and lots and lots, and they go online and copy out definitions. But that's why I forced my pupils to do the mind map, because you have to synthesize the information. You can't copy it as it is because it wouldn't fit on a page. So just be wary of copying as a technique. But YouTube videos, flashcards, mind maps, Cornell notes, those are the key revision strategies. And I know I said about social media, but there are some exceptional TikTok videos as well for revision. And there's some really good educators out there, as long as they're not predicting. And as long as it's for the right exam board, and they're not talking about how to revise, but if they're going through topics and making them more accessible, it's a very good way to revise. Because what they do is, where I've said that they need to get the information and synthesize it, they're already doing that for the young people. I mean, I watched a TikTok recently which come up about how glucose is used in plants, and there was a really good acronym, and I hadn't thought of this, and it was SCARF. S for starch, C for cellulose, A for amino acids, R for respiration, and F for fats. And I thought that was really good, but I saw that on TikTok myself. So there is a lot out there, but as long as they're not predicting and they're not wasting their time saying, I got a grade 9 by revising using these techniques, they're just trying to get views. But as long as it's content and they're showing them information based around, or if they're modeling maths questions, or if they're saying include these keywords in your English, those revision videos are really good. But as long as they're not wasting young people's time by saying, I got a grade 9 and I did flashcards and I watched a YouTube video, because they're just trying to get likes and views.
Absolutely, and I think that's very important there as well to look out for that. But flashcards, my daughter did French, and she did flashcards, and I think there's some specific subjects you can really work flashcards very well with, and for her it really worked well with the French, because she could put down the English word and then have it in French, and she thoroughly enjoyed that. She still holds on to them like they are a gold mine to her, but she really enjoyed making flashcards for her French, and so she did very well with French. So obviously that technique did work for her. But I think for languages in particular, it's a really good topic to do. I've made note of the Cornell note-taking method, because I think note-taking is such a difficult concept. And as you said, I don't think I actually mastered it until I actually went to university, where you had a lecture and you had to just listen and make the notes. And what you made a note of was so important, because later I was going to look at that and I'd have to recall what the lecturer was talking about in that particular lesson. So note-taking is such a difficult concept to grasp. Do you have any, I mean, I know you've mentioned the watching that video. Do you have any little tips that you could give for students that are, because I know there's a lot of resources, even schools are providing their own paid for resources that schools have got affiliation with certain companies, and they have got children using their own resources for maths, English, to go online and watch this video or listen to this and then take notes. Is there a way of doing notes like that?
I think that's why I mentioned the Cornell notes, and you can watch a YouTube video and it'll show you how to do it, some really short videos. But I think the key thing is, like you just said, it's about having those little reminders. I think sometimes pupils are afraid to draw diagrams, and that's the one tip I would give, is if you're listening to something and you feel like a diagram will help you remember, then draw that quick diagram. It doesn't have to be the full sentence. So keywords, diagrams, anything like you just said will jog your memory and remind you of almost a paragraph that came after that one word, and the entire process of the one diagram you've drawn. Like, for example, if you drew a red blood cell and you just drew the image, you could then look at your image and then remember, like, it's got this shape and it's got no nucleus, etc. And they can put those notes in after. So it's about building that learning, recognizing the key concepts and then recalling the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, science is very factual. Science, maths, these subjects are very factual, where you are recalling facts and you are looking at things. Subjects like English, where it talks about your own opinion, so especially with the character Macbeth, when it talks about, can you explain why you think Macbeth acted in this way, for example, and then it's asking for their own particular view. And I think students, particularly boys, struggle with putting that down on a pen to paper. So orally, I've spoken to my son. He can give me crystal clear answers about why he thinks certain things happen. But when it comes to putting it down on paper, he really struggles. So do you have any suggestion as to how children can sort of think outside the box and get creative and know that there is no definite wrong or right answer? As long as you can justify what you were thinking and back it up, then it should be okay. But it's really hard getting that concept in them.
I think the key thing with that is having a scaffold ready. So when they are revising for literature, they have to be using quotes in their answers. So that if you go back to the flashcard technique, they would have a quote. And I think the teachers normally pick out 10 quotes that would come up very often. So if they've got that one quote, then they can look for what is the language device that's used there, what was the writer's intention, what was the context behind, at that time when this was written. Why was that? What did that language mean at that time? If they were to follow that as a scaffold, like take the quote, then they can put their own opinion in a more structured way, because they're following a model, and that would really help them to formulate the answer. And I think sometimes what the pupils do is they know they need to remember quotes, so they start recalling loads of quotes, but then they don't do the entire explanation of it. So sometimes they're too methodical and sometimes not methodical enough. And in terms of I line manage English, and having worked with the English teachers, that's what a lot of them try to push. But it's about practice again. And I think the flashcard and the note-taking method would work with that really well. And there's so much good material out there. Like you said, the schools do provide structures and scaffolds. But when you're getting to the end of year 10 and start of year 11, and you want to start writing those 30-mark essays, that's when you want to start practicing using that. So your quote is almost your anchor, and then it's about how, same with history, the facts and all of your opinions are based on content. So that's where that needs to be the anchor, and then how far and deep they go is the extent, isn't it, to their competence and how well they do on that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So, I mean, I guess, I think now looking back at it, even my own GCSE times, it's a very hard stage of life, because this is the only time ever in your life you're going to have 8 to 10 subjects that are very broad, and they're going to be subjects within this 8 to 10 boundary that you just don't like and you just don't want to progress in or even ever look at again. It's really hard motivating children to try and understand that this is the one time in their life they've just got to get through these 10 subjects and just succeed. And I think it's trying to getting organized and understanding how they can prepare better and break down these subjects. So, do you have any tips or strategies as to what students can do to break down these complex subjects and make them a bit more manageable and organize themselves a bit better?
I think the key is to look at the size of each subject. So you would never, if you're making a revision plan, you would never put science down. You would put biology, chemistry, and physics as separate subjects. You would put non-calculator and calculator maths as separate subjects on your revision timetable. English literature and English language would be separate subjects. And then your geography would be one subject, and your option subjects would be one. For example, your French, you could split it into reading and writing if you wanted to for revision. But it's about breaking down those key components and ensuring you're preparing for each individual paper. So that, for example, in history, there's 2 major topics per paper as such. So it's about preparing for those as individual subjects and not just saying I'm doing history. But the more granular the topic revision on the revision timetable, the better prepared they will be and the more organized they will feel. Children like it when somebody sits with them and makes it for them. So like as parents, if we sit down and say, okay, what topics are you doing for literature? Okay, you're doing Macbeth and you're doing A Christmas Carol and An Inspector Calls. What topics are you doing for history? Okay, you're doing World War I and you're doing Nazi Germany. Once you know what those topics are, you can then say to them, okay, maybe do 1 hour of this here, then 1 hour of that, and then you can make that for them. Children like it when you support them with that organization. So making that timetable with them for them. And at school, I've helped a lot of year 11s. We try to support them with making it. But I think as a parent, now that I've made one for my son, he waits for me to say, okay, what's next? What are we doing today? And that takes that decision-making burden off of them. And I think parents doing it sometimes works better than teachers, because we know what the dynamics of their life is. So if they've got I don't know, netball training that evening, then maybe they only have geography that evening. And then the next evening, Wednesday evening, for example, they haven't got anything, then you could put maths and English and history that day. So you could change it up for them, and you can decide when they have a day off. So like, okay, Friday night, we're not going to do anything, but then Saturday morning, you're going to do 4 subjects. So I think those decisions coming from the parent, knowing how much the child can take and how you can support them with your availability and planning that for them, I think that is the best support they can get, and that will get them organised.
Yeah, and I think you said something very good there, in the sense that it's one less thing for them to think about, because I find that, and I hate to say this, but boys are very different to girls. And the way they study, I mean, my daughter did her GCSEs last year, and she was very self-motivated. She knew how she needed to organize her work. I'm finding it a very different story with my son. I have to take that stress away from him and say, right, and you're right, he does. Once I've said to him, right, okay, you're going to do it like this, I didn't realize how much I've taken a burden off him. It's like, okay, I don't have to think about that. You've just taken that stress away from me. So I think, yes, while we think it's just putting a timetable together for them, it's actually quite a crucial part for their revision there. Last minute cramming, it's not really advised, and I guess it's something that we can't really avoid students doing, because I think it's just one of those, some students thrive on it and really need it, and some students just have that panic moment. Is there anything that they can do to refresh their memory the day before an exam? So, anything to calm their nerves down, to just, I've got a history paper tomorrow and I've got all these quotes that I need to remember and dates that I need to remember. I'm not sure how I'm going to. So is there anything you could advise?
I think sometimes that what they think is last minute cramming is actually validation for them. I think at times when they sit there and they look at that revision guide the night before and they're like, well, I know that. It gives them that sense of security of, okay, I'm ready for this now. And what's nice is when they then close that book and they go to sleep and they know that actually they've done it. I think the worst thing that can happen is if they pick up their revision guide the night before and say, I have no idea what's going on here, because that can actually stress them out more. So I think if that does happen, as parents, we should be guiding them to, okay, but which part's your strongest? Let's just focus on that, because they're not going to always know it all. And I think motivation comes from that self-validation of, I am prepared. And sometimes we have to praise them even if they don't know it themselves, and sometimes we have to tell them that we believe in them. And I think the best thing you can do for the child just before the exam is say, look, you've worked hard and you are prepared now, so you will be okay. Because sometimes if they don't find that self-validation, because they don't see it, even though they might be ready, or if they picked up the revision guide and one topic they didn't know has thrown them, I think we then need to step in, because their mindset is very important, because an exam at the end of the day is a performance.
Yeah.
And if the mindset is not right, when they go in to perform, they will not give it their best performance, and that will impact it, because the recall happens, when you're in that moment, your brain will recall stuff, and people can be sharper and smarter. But I think it's about the mindset, because if they aren't there and the mindset's quite stressed, then sometimes they can have a block. And I think that praise, it sounds small, but just us validating their efforts and saying, I believe in you, and you've worked hard for the last 2 weeks, and I've seen that you've done that, you enjoyed this subject and you've done well in the last exam. These little comments here and there can really knock some of that stress out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all positive talk, and it's getting them to think in that same light as well. So on that, do you have any advice for students or parents to try and help manage exam stress and anxiety?
It's so common, isn't it? And I think anxiety usually is for something that's unknown. And I think reminding them, look, you did the mocks, you know what it feels like, you've seen the paper before, your teachers have told you. And again, just saying to them, just go in and do your best, because they also have a slight accountability to us parents, and they don't want to let us down. So if we say, I'll be happy if you go into that exam and you walk out and you say, I've given it my best, I will be happy with you. And that again takes that accountability away from them of, I've let my parent down, or, because they have always been accountable to us. So I think that would really help with it. But sometimes there's things that are beyond our control, and, children do get stressed. So I think, like I said, little things that will make them be prepared. A chocolate biscuit goes a long way on the day. Chocolate is a happy food, isn't it? So that makes a big difference. And giving them some dates so they've got that energy, making sure they've slept, giving them that water in the morning. When they go into the exam, they have to take the label off the water bottle before they go in. So if you wake up in the morning, give them a water bottle, take the label off. Then you say, look, this is ready for you for when you go into the exam. Just checking they've got the equipment. These little things will ease their stress a little bit, because it's one less thing that could go wrong, because they already worry about the paper going wrong.
Yeah.
Again, these happy foods work, and even a promise of, once that exam's done, we'll do this. So just small treats here and there. Like, I know they've got exams, but they can't be doing it 24/7. So a quick break of their favorite food, or we'll go visit that person for half an hour, or just go to the park. Anything that works for your child. That little bit of break in between is very important, and it changes the brain chemistry. And another thing is changing, like when a child is very, very stressed out, cold water on the head, or drinking cold water, or even going for a walk, anything that will change their temperature will really help change their mindset. So cold water on the head is a good one, because it's quite quick, but having a quick walk around, which increases the heart rate, which then changes the brain chemistry, those two strategies work quite well. And sometimes just silence as well, just letting them sit silently. Or some children like to doodle, some use reading, so that every child has something that works for them, and it's just about trialing a few until you find what works for your child.
Yeah, and allowing them to have an outlet where they can just release that tension. I didn't mention this, and I think it's a really key one, about past papers. What roles do these play in practicing past papers, and also how anyone that would like to do past papers as a revision, is it quite easy to access these?
Yeah, past papers can be accessible, same as the specification. So if you type in AQA Biology past paper 1, they will come up and you can see them. Save My Exams is a good one, and there's loads out there that the teachers have told the pupils about. Past papers are exceptional, because the more they practice, they need to look at the mark scheme as well. Every year the questions are similar. They're not the same, but sometimes it looks like they're the same. So if your child has practiced all of those past papers before they go into that exam, then they will have a few questions that are going to be identical, but in terms of what they need to write, but they will look similar in terms of the stem of the question, and they'll feel more confident doing them. So past papers is an absolute must. If they could do every single past paper for that before they go into the exam, they'll be ready.
It's pivotal. It's absolutely important that they do past papers. Yeah, and I think the concern was about how to access them. So they're quite readily available, because I know back in the days getting hold of past papers was just, it was crazy. It was very difficult.
You can access all of them. They usually lock the last exam series, and that's because schools use them for mocks.
Okay.
So actually they'll have done that one in a mock. So all of the ones that you would need are all on the internet. So they're quite easy to find.
Oh, excellent. That's really good to know. So, I mean, we're going to be heading over to the last 60 seconds of the show. Just before I go, any additional resources, support, or advice that you can offer to parents and students on today's show?
So the teachers are the best resource. Do not feel afraid to email your teachers, ask your teachers for additional resources, ask them to print stuff off. They are there to serve you. So I think sometimes people forget that, but the teachers are here to help. Ask and nag them. Send them your exam questions and say, what do you think? Do a past paper, take it in and say, can you please give me some feedback? The teachers are the best resource, and they should be the first point of contact.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Umara. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I know that you've taken a lot of time out, and I wish your son all the best for his
Thank you.
and inshallah he'll do very well with a great mum and teacher behind him, backing him up. So I have no doubt he'll do very well. Listeners, I have no doubt that you were able to take some positive notes on today's show and some excellent advice given by Umara there as well. So please, if you have any questions, post the show around how to get hold of any of these past papers or web links for revision techniques and strategies. Do email into the studio or just leave a note onto the Facebook part of the show, and inshallah I will try my best to get them out to everyone. Thank you again for Umara. And my quote for today's show is success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So keep your children positive and motivated throughout their exams. Jummah Barak to everyone tuned in. Please remember me and the team in your du'as, and assalamu alaikum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. When setting out on a journey, سبحان الذي سخر لنا هذا وما كنا له مقرنين وإنا إلى ربنا
Enjoy quality and tasty 100% authentic halal Chinese and Thai food from Gao Express, brought to you by the team behind Top's Pizza in Luton. Choose from all your delicious Chinese and Thai favourites. Then order for delivery or collection from Gao Express in Wellington Street, Luton, Marketplace, Stevenage, and now also on Nightingale Road in Hitchin. Open daily midday till late. Find the number or order online at Gao, that's GAO, express.co.uk, or like Gao Express on Facebook.
Had an accident, a bump, trip or fall? Then you need Claims Specialists, your first choice for accident claims. The Specialist Claims Company on Dunstable Road in Luton. With excellent access to expert solicitors and on a no-win, no-fee basis, Claims Specialists use their 30 years' experience to help get you the best compensation possible. For injuries at work, taxi, PCO and private hire incidents, road accidents and vehicle damage, medical negligence, plus rented housing disrepair. In short, when you need to make any claim, click on claimspecialists.co.uk or call 01582 733 222.
On 10